Steam rose from the shower as I tried to balance my weight on my good leg, the other still throbbing where the bullet had gone through my thigh 3 days earlier. Marcus Thompson, 42 years old, Navy veteran, boat engine mechanic, and now a man discovering how difficult it was to shower with surgical stitches. The sound of water hitting the shower stall mixed with the distant noise of waves breaking against the harbor dock, my constant soundtrack for 3 years, since I settled in this small coastal town in Maine after the divorce. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. My military routine still commanded my days. I woke up religiously at 5:30 in the morning with the first whistle of fishing boats returning from their dawn trips at sea. The aroma of strong black coffee filled the Spartan kitchen while I watched through the window as fishermen unloaded their catches. At 6 sharp, I opened the doors of the salt-weathered wooden shed that served as my workshop, where the smell of diesel oil permanently mixed with the ocean breeze. I knew every fisherman, every boat that docked at the harbor. My skilled hands fixed any engine that had problems, a reputation built over the years through honesty and quality work. The community respected me, but kept a respectful distance. I preferred it that way. After discovering that my ex-wife was cheating on me during my long absences in military service, loneliness had become my most faithful companion. The nights were too quiet. Just me, a cold beer, and the hypnotic sound of waves breaking against the breakwater rocks. My house, a few meters from the workshop, reflected my personality. Functional furniture, some military photos on the walls, and a direct view of the harbor. Nothing superfluous, nothing that could awaken painful memories of the failed marriage. During a typical Tuesday morning, the unmistakable noise of a diesel engine breaking down broke my concentration on a fishing motor I was dismantling. Steam was coming from the hood of a heavy cargo truck that had stopped in front of the workshop, interrupting my meticulous maintenance routine. The driver got out visibly frustrated, sweat running down his dark forehead, running his hand through his dark hair in a gesture of exasperation. "Engine problems?" I asked, approaching with a rag in my hands, assessing the situation with the technical I developed over decades dealing with machines. "Worst timing possible," he replied, his voice carrying an accent that suggested Latin origin. "I have a delivery in Boston tomorrow morning, and this damn truck decided to sabotage me here in the middle of nowhere." Jake Rodriguez, I found out later, 38 years old, long-distance truck driver. His presence contrasted with my reserved nature. He was expansive, used to life on the road, and constantly meeting new people. While I was territorial and cautious, he showed a natural ease for conversation that intrigued me. The diagnosis was clear: overheating caused by a defective water pump. The specific part would need to be ordered, which meant at least 2 days of waiting. I saw frustration grow in his brown eyes when I explained the situation. 2 days? "Man, this is going to cost me my job," he muttered, rubbing his face with his hands. What you hear here is just the beginning. The complete stories, unfiltered and with all the details you imagine, are available now. Check the link in the description right now. I can call some suppliers, try to speed up the process. I offered, surprising myself with my own willingness to help a stranger. During the following hours, while we waited for suppliers to get back to us, Jake revealed surprising knowledge about engines. His hands, large and calloused like mine, handled the tools with familiarity. I discovered he had learned mechanics from his father before dedicating himself to the roads. "Always liked understanding how things work," he said, adjusting a wrench. "My father used to say that a man who doesn't know how to fix his own machines is at the mercy of others." We shared stories while working side by side. Jake talked about the freedom of the road, the landscapes that changed with each trip, the feeling of not having fixed routes. I told him about the tranquility of the sea, the predictability of tides, how the constant rhythm of waves had become my refuge after years of uncertainty. "Must be good to have a place to call your own," he commented, observing through the workshop door my simple house overlooking the harbor. "It has its advantages," I replied, noticing how his eyes lingered on the landscape. "But I imagine the road has its charm too." When afternoon came, I invited him for lunch. We prepared simple sandwiches in my kitchen, the small space forcing a proximity I hadn't experienced in years. Jake was careful with my utensils, respectful of my space, but his presence filled the house in a way that surprised me. "Have you lived alone for a long time?" he asked, biting into the sandwich. 3 years, I replied, avoiding going into details about the divorce. "And you? Family waiting somewhere?" "No," he said, a melancholic tone coloring his voice. "The road isn't very compatible with lasting relationships. People want stability, constant presence. I offer adventure and absence." I realized we both carried a particular loneliness, mine self-imposed as protection, his imposed by the circumstances of his profession. During the afternoon, while we waited for news about the part, our conversations deepened. Jake told road stories with contagious enthusiasm, while I shared knowledge about navigation and maritime life. "Have you ever thought about traveling?" he asked. "Seeing other places?" "I traveled a lot in the Navy," I replied. "Now, I prefer stability." "I understand," he said, but his eyes suggested he saw beyond my superficial answer. On the second day, the part arrived earlier than expected. While we installed the new water pump, a call interrupted our work. An important client demanded an engine ready the same day, creating pressure on my schedule. Jake noticed my tension. "I can help with that," he offered. "I'll finish here and you take care of the other engine." "You don't need to," I began. "Partners help each other," he said with a smile that made something move in my chest. We worked in perfect sync, our hands occasionally brushing when we reached for the same tool. Each accidental touch created an electricity I tried to ignore, but which became increasingly difficult to deny. Jake seemed to feel the same tension, his glances lingering a few seconds longer than necessary when I passed a wrench or explained a procedure. When we finished, the sun was already setting over the ocean, painting the sky with golden and orange tones. Jake cleaned his hands on a rag, his muscles moving under the grease-stained shirt. "Thanks for the help," I said, genuinely grateful. "You didn't need to do that." "I wanted to," he replied, his eyes meeting mine. "It's been a while since I worked with someone who really understands engines." The moment stretched between us, charged with something neither of us dared to name. Jake would leave the next morning, returning to the road and his nomadic life. I would return to my solitary routine, to predictable days between the workshop and the empty house. "Want to have dinner?" I asked impulsively. "As thanks for the help." "That would be great," he replied, a genuine smile lighting up his face. As we walked to my house, I felt something had changed between us. Professional camaraderie had evolved into something more intimate, more personal. Jake observed everything with genuine interest: the military photos, the harbor view, the functional simplicity of the environment. "It's exactly as I imagined," he said, standing at the kitchen window looking at the sea. "How so?" "Practical, honest, no frills," he explained. "Like you." We prepared dinner together, our movements naturally coordinating in the small space. Jake told funny road stories while I cooked, his laughter filling the house with a life it hadn't known in years. I opened a bottle of red wine I had been saving for months, a rare indulgence that the occasion seemed to deserve. During dinner, our conversations flowed to more personal territories. Jake admitted his loneliness on the road, how beautiful landscapes lost their charm when there was no one to share them with. I confessed the emptiness left by the divorce, how I had taken refuge in work to avoid confronting the pain of betrayal. "Sometimes I wonder if I chose the road or if it chose me," Jake said, swirling the wine in his glass. "After a while, you get used to the freedom, but also to the lack of real connection." "Understand," I replied. After the divorce, I thought loneliness would be temporary. 3 years later, it became my comfort zone. Our knees touched under the small table, neither of us pulling away. The wine had relaxed our defenses, allowing an honesty we rarely shared with strangers. But Jake no longer felt like a stranger. In 2 days, he had become closer than many people I had known for years. When we finished eating, we moved to the small porch overlooking the harbor. The moon reflected on the calm water, creating a silver path that extended to the horizon. Jake sat next to me on a narrow bench, our shoulders touching. "Thank you," he said softly, "not just for fixing the truck. for welcoming me, for the company. It's been a while since I felt so connected. I'm the one who should thank you, I replied, my voice hoarser than intended. You brought life to this place. We sat in silence, watching the lights of boats anchored in the harbor. The night breeze carried the salty aroma of the sea mixed with something more subtle, Jake's masculine scent, a combination of soap and a natural smell of his skin. When he got up to leave, I felt a pang of disappointment that surprised me. I didn't want that moment to end, didn't want to return to the loneliness of the empty house. Marcus, he said, standing at the door, hesitating. Yes. I pass through here every 3 weeks. Same route, same schedule. Good to know, I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral while my heart raced. He smiled, a smile that carried promise and possibility, before walking back to the truck parked in front of the workshop. I watched his taillights disappear on the coastal road, a mixture of melancholy and hope filling my chest. For the first time in 3 years, I had something to look forward to besides work. 3 weeks had passed since Jake left, and each day seemed to drag eternally. My routine had returned to normal. Wake up at 5:30, open the office at 6, work until sunset, but something fundamental had changed. The silence of the house was no longer comforting, it was suffocating. Every engine noise on the road made my heart race, hoping Jake's familiar truck would appear around the curve. On a Thursday morning, the unmistakable sound of Jake's diesel echoed through the harbor. I ran to the window, and there he was, parking in front of the office with a smile that brightened my entire day. This time, he carried a bigger backpack and some extra clothes on the passenger seat. Engine problems again? I asked, trying to disguise the joy overflowing from my chest. Not this time, he replied, his eyes shining with an intensity that made my stomach flutter. I just wanted to see how you were doing. We spent the day working side by side in the office, our chemistry even more evident than before. Each accidental touch sent waves of electricity through my body. Jake told stories from the road from recent days, but I noticed his eyes lingered on me longer than necessary, as if memorizing every detail of my face. When the sun began to set, I invited him to dinner again. This time, the tension between us was palpable from the moment we entered the house. We prepared a meal in charged silence, our bodies gravitating toward each other whenever possible. When our hands touched reaching for the same utensil, neither of us pulled away. During dinner, conversation flowed naturally, but there was an undercurrent of desire that neither of us could ignore. Jake talked about his last trip, but his eyes never left my lips. I answered his questions, but my mind was focused on how his muscles moved under his shirt when he gestured. Marcus, he said softly, his voice hoarser than normal. I need to tell you something. What is it? I couldn't stop thinking about you. For the past 3 weeks, every mile I drove, every city I visited, everything reminded me of you and the days we spent together. My heart raced. Jake, I know this might complicate things, he continued, leaning closer. But I can't pretend I don't feel this. I got up from the table and extended my hand to him. Come with me. He took my hand without hesitation, and we walked toward the bathroom. My legs still hurt occasionally since the injury, and Jake had noticed my difficulty showering during his last visit. Let me help you, he murmured, his hands already reaching for the hem of my shirt. The small bathroom quickly filled with steam when I turned on the shower. Jake helped me remove my shirt, his fingers accidentally brushing my heated skin. Each touch sent waves of heat through my body, awakening sensations I had repressed for years. When his hands reached my belt, our eyes met. There was a silent question there, and my answer came in the form of a soft kiss on his lips. He responded immediately, his hands moving more urgently to undress me completely. Under the warm shower water, our bodies finally met without barriers. Jake held me firmly when I almost slipped, our chests pressed against each other. Time seemed to stop in that moment. There were just the two of us, water cascading over our skin, and years of loneliness finally coming to an end. His hands explored every contour of my body like a navigator discovering unknown territories. I surrendered completely, my back against the cold shower wall, while the hot water created a curtain of steam around us. Jake whispered words of desire in my ear, his hoarse voice mixing with the sound of water. Our bodies moved in a silent symphony, each touch, each gasping breath echoing in the small space. Jake guided me through sensations I had never experienced, his hands tracing maps of pleasure on my skin. When he took me completely, I felt as if two pieces of a puzzle had finally found their perfect place. The intensity of the moment consumed us. Jake held me with a strength that spoke of years of repressed desire, while I clung to his shoulders as if he were my only anchor to reality. Our movements became more urgent, more necessary, as we tried to compensate for all the lost time in a single night. When we finally climaxed together, it was as if the entire world had stopped. We remained embraced under the water, heavy breathing mixing with the steam, processing the magnitude of what had happened between us. Jake helped me dry off with a tenderness that contrasted with the passion we had shared moments before. His hands trembled slightly as he passed the towel over my body, as if he still couldn't believe this was real. "This changes everything," he murmured, his eyes meeting mine in the fogged mirror. "I know," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. We dressed in silence, but was a comfortable silence, charged with a new intimacy. Every gesture, Jake adjusting my shirt, me running my fingers through his wet hair, carried the weight of our transformative connection. In bed, we lay side by side, our bodies still warm from the encounter in the shower. Jake traced soft circles on my chest, while I watched how moonlight filtered through the curtains, painting our skin with a silver glow. "I never felt anything like this before," Jake confessed, his voice low in the darkness. "With anyone." "Neither did I admitted, turning to face him. "After what happened, I thought I'd never be able to connect with someone this way again. And now I know I was just waiting for the right person." Jake smiled gently, a smile that carried promise and vulnerability in equal measure. We kissed again, this time with a tenderness that spoke of feelings deeper than simple physical desire. During the following hours, we explored our bodies with time and patience. Jake showed me forms of pleasure I was unaware of, while I discovered how to make him moan my name with a need that mirrored my own. We made love 2 more times during the night, each encounter revealing new layers of our connection. When dawn began to paint the sky with pink tones, we remained embraced, processing what our relationship had become. We were no longer just 2 lonely men who found temporary company. We were something deeper, more meaningful. "I have to leave this afternoon," Jake said, his voice tinged with reluctance. "I know," I replied, trying not to let sadness show. "But you'll come back, right?" "Always," he promised, sealing the promise with a kiss. Every 3 weeks, like clockwork, we spent the morning creating a domestic routine that seemed natural despite its novelty. Jake prepared coffee while I made scrambled eggs, our movements perfectly coordinated in the small kitchen. Small touches, a hand on the shoulder, fingers that intertwined, punctuated our interaction, constant reminders of the intimacy we had shared. When it was time for Jake to leave, we walked together to the truck. He handed me a card with his cell phone number and his specific route. "So you know exactly when to expect me," he explained. "I'll count the days," I admitted, surprising myself with my own honesty. I watched the truck drive away on the coastal road, but this time the melancholy was tempered by solid certainty. Jake would return, and when he did, we would continue building something neither of us expected to find. For the first time in 3 years, my house didn't feel empty. It was full of memories of Jake, the smell of his soap in the bathroom, the impression of his head on the pillow, the echo of his laughter on the walls. I had found something I thought was lost forever, the ability to love and be loved in return. As I returned to my workshop to continue my work, I carried with me the certainty that life had changed irrevocably. Jake wasn't just a break in my loneliness. He was the beginning of a new chapter, one I could barely wait to continue writing. The following months established a pattern that became the rhythm of my new life. Every 3 weeks, like a Swiss watch, The familiar sound of Jake's diesel engine echoed through the harbor, announcing his arrival. Each visit lasted 2 or 3 days, depending on his delivery schedule, and during that time my house transformed from solitary refuge into a shared home. Jake began leaving small belongings, an extra toothbrush, some clean clothes, a book he was reading during long hours on the road. These objects became anchors of our growing intimacy, tangible reminders that our connection transcended casual encounters. During his 5th visit, Jake arrived with a proposal that would change everything. "I managed to negotiate a fixed route," he announced, his eyes shining with excitement as he unloaded a larger suitcase from the truck. "Boston to Miami, always passing through here. Twice a week." My heart raced. "Twice a week. Tuesdays and Fridays," he confirmed, pulling me into a tight hug. "I could spend the night here regularly, if you want." "Of course I want," I replied, my voice choked with emotion. That night, as we made love with renewed passion, I whispered in his ear, "Stay with me. Forever." Jake stopped his movements, his eyes meeting mine in the bedroom's dim light. "Marcus, are you sure? My life has always been the road." "Then change your life," I said, my voice firm despite the vulnerability I felt. "We can make this work. You can base your operations here. Use my house as a starting point." He kissed me deeply, a response that spoke more than words could express. In that moment, I knew we had made a decision that would alter the course of our lives forever. In the following weeks, Jake gradually began transferring his base of operations to my town. He kept his route, but now our house became his safe harbor between trips. We expanded the workshop to include a space for truck maintenance, combining our professional expertise with our personal life. The transformation wasn't just logistical. It was emotional and profound. Jake brought life to every corner of the house that had been my solitary fortress. His laughter echoed through the kitchen during breakfast. His road stories filled the silent nights. His physical presence warmed the bed that had been cold for too many years. We established rituals that became sacred to us. Every morning Jake was home, we showered together, not just for physical pleasure, but as a moment of silent intimacy where we reconnected after his absences. Under the warm water, our hands explored bodies that became increasingly familiar. Each scar, each mark, each sensitive zone mapped with the precision of experienced navigators. "You changed everything for me," Jake murmured against my wet skin, his hands tracing the outline of my shoulders while water cascaded over us. "Before I met you, I just existed. Now I live." These shower moments became our particular form of communication, where unspoken words found expression through touch, where the loneliness of his trips was washed away along with the dirt from the road. Jake helped me wash places my injured leg still made difficult to reach, and I reciprocated by massaging his tense shoulders from long hours driving. 6 months after his decision to settle with me, Jake made a proposal that sealed our future together. "I want to buy my own truck," he said one night, as we watched the sunset from the porch. "Work for myself, choose my own routes. It means I can be here more time. Much more time," he explained, holding my hand. "I can make 1 or 2 day trips and come home every night." The word home sounded different on his lips. It was no longer my house he visited. It was our house where he belonged. We used our combined savings to buy a used truck, and Jake officially became an independent driver. The transition wasn't without challenges. There were sleepless nights when he worried about financial stability, moments of tension when I questioned whether I had pressured his decision to abandon the freedom of the road too much. But every doubt dissolved when we found ourselves in bed at the end of the day, our bodies fitting perfectly, our breathing synchronizing to the rhythm of shared sleep. Jake had traded the vastness of the road for the depth of true love, and I had traded the security of solitude for the vulnerability of opening my heart again. A year after our first meeting, while we worked side by side in the expanded workshop, Jake suddenly stopped and looked at me with an intensity one recognized from our most intimate moments. "You know what impresses me most?" he asked, cleaning his hands on the rag. "What?" "How you taught me that home isn't a place, it's a person." That night, We made love with a tenderness that spoke of eternal commitment. There is no longer the desperate urgency of first encounters, nor the frenzied passion of reunions after separations. It was something deeper, the intimacy of two men who had chosen to build a life together, who knew every sound the other made in pleasure, every way to give and receive love. Jake took me slowly, our eyes connected while our bodies moved in perfect harmony. Each movement was a silent declaration of love, each kiss a renewed promise of fidelity. When we climaxed together, it was as if we sealed a pact that transcended words or official ceremonies. Now, 2 years after that first day, when Jake stopped at my workshop with engine problems, our life has found a rhythm that perfectly combines our complementary personalities. Jake still travels, but his absences are measured in hours, not weeks. He leaves in the morning and returns at nightfall, bringing fresh road stories and renewed appreciation for what we built together. Our workshop became known in the region not just for the quality of work, but for the unique partnership Jake and I represent. We are the marine mechanic and the truck specialist, but more than that, we are two men who found in shared work an extension of our love. Mornings still begin with our shower ritual, but now there's a comfortable familiarity in our touches. Jake knows exactly how to massage my shoulders to relieve tension from heavy work, and I know precisely where to kiss his neck to make him sigh with contentment. These moments became our daily meditation, our way of starting each day reaffirming our connection. I frequently reflect on how a simple mechanical problem transformed two solitary lives into a partnership neither of us had imagined possible. Jake taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the courage to allow someone to see who you really are. I taught him that stability doesn't mean stagnation. It means having a solid foundation from which to explore the world. Our story isn't just about two men who fell in love. It's about the transformation that happens when we find someone who sees us completely and chooses to stay. It's about discovering that true love doesn't limit our freedom. It redefines it. Today, as I watch Jake return from another trip, his truck navigating the coastal road toward our house, I feel deep gratitude for the journey that brought us here. He's no longer the frustrated stranger with mechanical problems, nor am I the lonely veteran hiding behind the walls of his workshop. We are Marcus and Jake, partners in life and work, two men who discovered that sometimes destiny disguises itself as a mechanical breakdown to deliver exactly what we needed, even when we didn't know we were looking for it. What you hear here is just the beginning. The complete stories, unfiltered and with all the details you imagine, are available now. Check the link in the description right now. If you made it this far on this journey with us, leave your like to support stories that celebrate love in all its forms. Subscribe to the channel because we have much more to share about authentic human connections, about how love can flourish in the most unexpected places. In the comments, tell us, do you believe there are encounters that change everything? Until the next story, remember that true love always finds a way.